I think it is important to recognize how big of a contribution he made to our world, and especially the world of music. I think he was just the biggest musical genius there ever was. Of course, there's so many great composers, but I think in terms of just raw talent and ability to just convince you and to just write something that instantly can speak to you, I feel like Mozart is probably unbeatable there.
I feel like Mozart just knew how to write a really great melody and package it. I think the only thing for me with Mozart is there's not quite as much variety in his writing as I wish there was, but maybe if he would have lived longer, I'm sure there would be more. But I think that just in terms of writing things that are instantly recognizable and so pleasant, and there's nothing that you'd want to do except for just hum that melody for the rest of the day, I feel like Mozart is definitely king of that. There's so many incredible things that he's written. Almost everything that he writes is a melody that'll just get stuck in your head, and you'll find yourself thinking about it hours later, days later even, and it's just incredible. And it's not that complicated either. That's why it's able to stick in your head. I mean, Schoenberg or Berg, you're not going to get one of those melodies stuck in your head probably.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, there's no comparison there. Mozart just has the ability to write melodies like no other composer, I think. Everyone is equally charming. Yeah, I mean, his music is very similar, a lot of it, but, that's the charm there. And I think it's really cool that, so Mozart's father, Leopold Mozart, played the violin. He was actually a very good violinist, and it's super cool how Mozart just picked up the violin, and basically the legend is that he could just play the violin. There was no musical talent ever like Mozart, I heard.
I think that's totally true. Mozart reminds me of the filmmaker Wes Anderson because everything is very proportional and even, and the colors are so vivid. Wes Anderson, he always has so much charm in every conversation, and he gives you a lot more in detail in the film than you'll ever need. But that's part of the charm of it. I feel just like in Mozart, when you play a phrase, there's a lot of nuance within the phrase between the notes, but it's the big picture that counts. When someone plays a Mozart concerto super well, you just feel so charmed. You're like, oh, that was such a great experience. And you're moved in a different way. You're moved by the sheer beauty of the experience rather than feeling like there's something extremely philosophical that Mozart is trying to tell you. It's just happy, charming, beautiful music. And I feel the same way with Wes Anderson films. Some people don't like Wes Anderson films because he's often criticized for style over substance. And I think that is a criticism that some people could make of Mozart's music as well. Not of all of his music, but for some of his music certainly. It's like, well, this is just another happy piece. This is another beautiful melody. And I think that it's important to understand what an artist is trying to convey. I think that Mozart had such a love for music, and like you said, he was such a musical genius, and he had a love for life too. He was a goofy guy. He enjoyed life. I think that there's so much joy and charm wrapped up in his music. I think the same with Wes Anderson. He's a very particular filmmaker, and I think that he makes sure that every shot is beautiful, and the conversations that characters have, they're so charming. And Wes Anderson also really loves theater, and you can see that love for theater in all of his films. And I think Mozart, he had such a love for theater as well because of him loving opera, and I think there are a lot of parallels there. And watching and appreciating a lot of Wes Anderson films, of course they're very different, but I think there are a lot of parallels there, and thinking of Mozart in that lens helped me appreciate his style more. It's really interesting from composer to composer. Like I just mentioned, every composer is trying to express something different, and I think it's important for us not to project ourselves onto the composer in terms of, well, I don't think this has value unless it gives me this, this, and this, and that's what I like out of music, because I think it's important to be versatile as a musician. When you're listening to Mozart, if you're looking for the type of raw emotion that comes from Shostakovich or Beethoven, potentially you won't find it. But that doesn't mean that it's not incredible music. It just does a different thing for you.
Wow, that's so great that Wes Anderson's films made such a huge impact. You mentioned how now you approach Mozart so differently and that you found this new love for it. And I noticed that in your playing of Mozart as well, when you were just demonstrating a couple notes a while back when you came over. You just seem to be more free and you just kind of let loose within that charming world. It's so great that also just in general that you found a medium that helped influence your violin playing. Art is all interconnected. I mean, the world is interconnected. It doesn't even have to be just art. I totally with you on that. I find inspiration from other things as well away from music. And I think we should continue to do that because the world needs music, but the world needs film. The world needs other types of art. And just being appreciative of all types of beauty just helps us appreciate the world more and see it in a different way.